My comrades all died young, at 20 or 30, and happy with revolution in their hearts. You wouldn't understand. I envy them. When we were 18 and 20 years old, we talked about revolution and love. We were revolution fanatics, but we also spent a lot of time arguing about Alexandra Kollontaj's love of worker bees, which was very popular at that time. The author defends free love, that is, love without anything superfluous, kissing and love letters. We held meetings about it. Our views were divided. Some of us were for free love, but with the wild cherries, that is, with feelings, while others were against any wild cherries at all. I was for the wild cherries. At least in favor of kissing. Yes, really. I'd fallen in love. I was courting my future wife. We'd read Gorky together. Were we naive? Perhaps. But what we did was also beautiful. Beautiful. The town of Orsk, near Orenburg. Freight trains full of kulak families rolling through night and day on their way to Siberia. We guarded the station. One time I opened the doors of one of the train cars. A half-naked man was hanging from a belt in the corner. Mother was cradling the little one in her arms while her oldest son sat on the floor next to her, eating his own shit like it was kasha. Shut the door. The commissar shouted at me, "That is the kulak bastard. There's no room for them in our new life." The future. It's supposed to be beautiful. It will be later. Charming young lady was interviewing me the other day. She started enlightening me how terrifying the years I lived through had been. She had read about them in books. But that's where I come from. And here she was telling me, you were slaves. You were Stalin's slaves. I was no slave, you little snot, even now. Well, I am racked by doubt. I know that I was no slave. My homeland is October. Lenin. Socialism. I loved the revolution. Wherever the party assigned me, I served. I don't remember very much of my own life, only work. Nobody works that hard anymore. We were 50 to 100 years behind the most developed countries. An entire century. Stalin's plan was to catch up in 15 or 20 years. Stalin's great leap forward, and we knew that we could do it. Stalin never slept, so we didn't sleep. The entire administrative cadre, from the top to the bottom. I was the chief of a tire factory, the head of a construction trust put in charge of the meat packing plant. I was They arrested my wife. I got home from work and found my son sleeping on a little rug in the hall next to the cat. He had waited and waited for his mama and finally fallen asleep. She worked at a shoe factory. She was a red engineer. Something strange is going on, she said to me. They're taking all my friends for some kind of treason. You and I are innocent, I said to her. No one is coming for us. I was sure of it. Absolutely positive. I was a Leninist. I was a Stalinist. Until 1937, I was a Stalinist. It seems stupid now, but I thought the party would take care of it. And then they arrested my wife. Honest and dedicated party warrior. Three days later, they came for me, three of them. One just walked around the apartment, picking out things for himself. You won't be needing this anymore, he said as he took a clock down from the wall. I was stunned. He searched from 2 a.m. until dawn, and so I had time to think, and I remember the most recent party conference, they had read out a salutation to Comrade Stalin. The whole auditorium had stood up. Glory to Comrade Stalin, the organizer and the inspiration behind our successes. Glory to our leader. 15 minutes, half an hour. We all just stood there and turned around and looked at one another, not wanting to be the first to sit. And then for some reason I sat down. It was mechanical. Two plainclothes officers went up to me and said, "Comrade, why are you sitting?" I jumped up. Toward morning, they finished the search. They ordered me to pack my bags. The nanny had woken my son. Before I left, I had just enough time to whisper to him, "Don't tell anyone about your mother and father." That's how I survived. They confiscate everything in prison. Belt, scarf, bootlaces, but you can still kill yourself. I thought of asphyxiating myself with my pants or the rubber waistband from my underwear. They beat me in the stomach with a bag of sand. Everything came out of me like I was a worm. They would hang me from hooks like it was the Middle Ages, and everything just leaks out. You no longer have any control over your bodily functions, it just leaks out. Enduring the pain, it is better just to die. I don't know how to talk about these things today. All in all, it was barbarism. Humiliating. You're nothing more than a piece of meat lying in a pool of urine. They weren't all sadists. They would get their quotas from above, quotas to fulfill for capturing enemies. They'd change over, drink tea, call home. Flirt with the nurses who had been called in whenever somebody fainted from the torture. They had regular hours, shifts. In the meantime, your life is completely turned upside down. That's how it went. The investigator in charge of my case was a school principal, and he tried to convince me. He said, "You are a naive person. We will put you down, And the protocol will say that you were killed during an escape attempt. Remember what Gorky said. The enemy who doesn't surrender will be eliminated. But I'm no enemy. You have to understand, the only person who is not a threat to us is the repentant man, the ruined man. We would discuss this. They were always writing something down. People were in there for long stretches, months. Read this. Protocol. And I would read it and say, I never said that. And then they'd beat me. They really put their hearts into those beatings. And in the end, all of them ended up getting shot themselves or sent to the camps. After a year, a new investigator summoned me. He said my case was being reviewed, and then they released me, dismissing all charges. So it had all been a mistake. After all, the party believed me. My son was living with strangers. The nanny had taken him out into the country. He had started stuttering and was afraid of the dark. Two of us began a new life together, and I tried to find out any news I could about my wife, and at the same time, I applied to have my party membership reinstated. And New Year's Eve, we decorated a tree. My son and I were expecting guests, and the doorbell rang, and I opened the door, and a poorly dressed woman was standing on the threshold. She said, I've come to send you greetings from your wife. Wife. She's still alive. She was alive a year ago. I worked with her in a pigsty. We would steal frozen potatoes from the pigs. And thanks to that, we didn't starve to death. I have no idea whether or not she's still alive. She didn't stay long. I didn't try to keep her. My son and I were expecting visitors, and bells rang. We opened the champagne. Our first toast was to Stalin. 1941. Everyone cried. I jumped for joy. I'll go to war. At least they'll let me fight. I began asking to be sent to the front. I knew the recruiting officer, and he said, I can't do it. I have specific instructions not to enlist any enemies. Who's an enemy? Me, an enemy. Your wife is serving time in the camps under Article 58 for counter-revolutionary activity. Kiev fell. German troops were advancing on Stalingrad. I envied everyone in uniform. Even young women were being sent to the front. I wrote to the district party committee, either shoot me or send me to the front. 2 days later, I got a letter ordering me to report to the assembly point at 2400 hours. I don't remember much about the war, although it's more recent. I remember not much had changed since the first war. The soldier's life was just the same. Nothing but barley soup and wheat kasha to eat for years at a time. Same dirty linens for months, never wash, sleep on the ground, bare ground. Would we have won if we'd been any different? I went into the fray. They were shooting at us with machine guns. We all hit the dirt, and they started in with the howitzer, which just plainly rips people to shreds. The commissar fell down beside me. What are you doing lying here, you counter-revolutionary bastard? Advance or I will shoot you myself. I came home twice wounded with 3 decorations and medals. They called me into the district party committee. Unfortunately, we will not be able to return your wife to you. She's died. But you can have your honor back. And they gave me back my party membership card. I was happy. I was so happy. You cannot judge us according to life, to logic. You have to understand you can only judge us according to the laws of religion. Faith. Our faith will make you jealous. What greatness is there in your life? Only comfort. Everything for a full belly. That stomach of yours, stuff your face and fill your house with tchotchkes. My generation built everything. The dams, the factories, the electric power stations. What have you ever built? And we were the ones who defeated Hitler. You think that communism is like an infectious disease, like they are writing about in today's newspapers, that it was brought over in a sealed train from Germany? No. The people revolted. There was no Tsarist Russian golden age, is the one that's suddenly being remembered today. Fairy tales. The Russian soldier died for everyone. And the life we had? In my family, 1 pair of snow boots for 5 children. We ate potatoes with bread. In the winter, without bread. And you ask me where communists come from. Wait a minute, don't leave. I have to tell you one last story. I'm 15 years old. Red Army troops come to our village on horseback, drunk, a subdivision. They sleep until evening, and then they summon all of the Komsomol members. The commander addressed us. The Red Army is starving. Lenin is starving. While the kulaks are taking their grain and burning it. But I knew that my mother's brother, Uncle Semyon, had taken sacks of grain into the woods and buried them. I was a Komsomol youth. I'd taken the oath. I went to the soldiers and I led them to where the grain was buried, and they got a whole cartload. The commander shook my hand. In the morning, I was woken by my mother screaming, "Semyon's house is on fire." They found Uncle Simeon in the woods. The soldiers had cut him to pieces with their sabers. I was 15. Red Army was starving. And then I was afraid to go outside, so I sat in the house weeping, and my mother figured out what had happened. She came to me that night with a feed bag, handed it to me. Leave, son. May God forgive your miserable soul. I want to die a communist. It's my final wish.